Good afternoon, Tony Datino. I am the founder of the USA Memory Championship and constantly reading different newsletters and white papers and books on mental health, cognitive reserve, and fitness. So I'm reading last week, as you may be with me, I had two parts of the current issue called Mind, Mood, and Memory. Mind, Mood, and Memory is put out by Massachusetts General Hospital. And the July issue has really hit me with a number of them, which is why I've called it Part 1, Part 2. Did a skip on something I read in ARP on Friday and jet back to Part 3. And I'm probably going to go to Parts 4 and 5 on this particular issue. I think it's loaded with good stuff. So let's go to today's good stuff. A study suggests that conversations are key to healthy cognition. Researchers have found that conversational interactions are especially helpful with people struggling with isolation and loneliness. Now, they distinguish this with older adults suffering with isolation and loneliness, and I think the study obviously limited to seniors missed half the boat, because what I've discovered in my years of doing this and my Live with Tony's and isolation and loneliness and associating with kids in school, that there's nothing that hit during the pandemic even stronger than seniors were taking kids out of schools and not having them see with their friends and playing. And I got that just from my own neighborhood of talking with kids and then getting back into a few schools and hearing parents talk about their kids are climbing up the wall, or their kids are just become totally undisciplined, or as we saw, teen suicides reaching all-time record highs. So the notion of conversations to me are key to cognitive health for all ages. So I'm going to address my Live with Tony today as if it were all ages, and we just have a sample of the seniors done in the study that Massachusetts General is publishing that addresses it to that level. But I don't see any distinction between age groups when we talk about social isolation or loneliness. So let's get to work. So what are we talking about? First of all, we're talking about people who do not communicate. The people feel that they're alone. They keep their thoughts to themselves. They don't go out grocery shopping, or maybe they go out and they quickly come back home. They sit home all day and, as they call it, looking at the same four walls, whether it be your bedroom, your kitchen, your living room. Maybe they don't have any pictures of plants or trees or oceans or waterways or waterfalls. I mean, I'm really sensitive to all these things. Even when I get sick sometimes and I stay home, I look at some of the pictures we've got of gardens and flowers and trees and plants and waters. And things of that sort. So when you get to that point where you just feel boxed in, or you're like in a cage, or I'm isolated from the rest of the world, what I say to people is just get outside on your front stoop. During COVID, I would get out on my front stoop in my residence in Windermere, Florida. I'd just sit on the porch and watch people walk by with their dog. Now, we were a good 20 feet away before we even got to 6 feet of good and 10 feet. These were people a good 20 feet away, but I was on their porch, and you'd wave a hello. You'd watch the dog walk by and what the dog was doing, or listening to people chattering with one another if it were a family member or group. But I needed to get out. I realized I needed to get out of the house at least one time a day and sit on the porch. And sometimes it was a club soda, other times it was a beer, sometimes it was a glass of juice. But I would find myself, if I didn't get out for that day, I would just find myself being much more tense, much more stressed, and having a much more difficult time going to sleep and thinking, boy, I got another day in the cage tomorrow. So I found myself just naturally wanting to get out and communicate. And then I started using Zoom. So we found Zooming was a good way of getting out once we realized the pandemic was not going to be a 30-day deal. So we started to do Zoom. So I've learned how to do more and more of my work, as I'm doing today, on Facebook, on YouTube's. And so using technology became a helpful thing. The Zoom memberships just rocketed. The amount of time people spent on chats and Google chats and whatever just grew significantly. In some cases, it still has maintained itself. But what we've done is we have now here in this article in the Mind, Mood, and Memory is that we've done in 15 years we've conducted a series of interventions, trials, hypothesizing that stimulation from engaging conversations could enhance our brain reserve, says the doc that did the study. The findings published are the results from the most recently completed trial. Our next goal is to extend these activities to reach more isolated individuals, as well as to delve into the biological mechanisms underlying the impact of social interactions on our brain functions. What they basically did is they had a group of volunteers engaged in 30-minute video conversations 4 times a week and twice a week for 6 more months. The control group did not have these conversations or interventions, but groups had weekly 10-minute telephone check-ins. At the end of the study, members of the conversation group had significantly higher cognitive test scores compared with the control group. That does not surprise me. Of all of the reading and all of the observations and the people studies I've done, losing your friends, feeling like your friends weren't there to talk to you, you had nobody you could talk to in terms of a problem you had, something that was concerning you, your own health. I mean, how many patients didn't come see them for months and years? How many doctor's offices backed up? And so people lost all of their natural habits, all of their natural ways of going about day-to-day life. And it turned their world upside down. So not only did you create a lonely, isolated experience for them, but you broke their norms, you broke their habits and their ways of going about things. So just add all of that together, and there's not a surprise that in these series of interventions, you found that people's cognitive, mental well-being, as well as sometimes physical well-being, took a hit. The connection between conversations and brain health has been an active study for the last 20 years. So this is interesting that since COVID, and boy, this is the perfect time for it, there have been more studies suggesting that conversations among adults boost brain functions, including the prefrontal cortex. So the bottom line is it helps with our mental functioning, it helps with our overall well-being. I'm sure it helps with our body's immune systems as well. Conversations were associated with increased production of hormones, transmitters, stimulate various nerve pathways and body systems that enhance the health of the brain and the rest of the body. And a positive feel-good conversation, it helped raise dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and biochemicals that support an overall sense of well-being. Why should that be such a surprise? We had to do a study on that. When you just grab a group of people and they feel like after they've had a night to be social, a night to be able to talk to other people, they feel connected. We call it community. There's someone they could lean on and pick up the phone and talk to. Somebody they could text, right? Even texting. This goes on to say, if you find that you're not conversing as much every day, reach out to friends and family members. Video chats can be beneficial, but a phone call, a text message, or social media interactions are also highly beneficial. And I'll distinguish, they're beneficial to the extent of having nothing. But boy, there's nothing better than seeing someone, looking at their face, what are they dressed in, and seeing them personally. You can see all their body language and what their movements are, what their expressions are, how they're fitting in. Get out of your home on a regular basis and interact with others. So you can join clubs and groups, go to a coffee shop. I mean, I do these things. So for me, these are not difficult things, but I've learned to do them in the last 4 or 5 years. I've learned to do them as just part of the consulting work I've done for 20 years. And I've yet to ever have anybody look at me like, I give you a punch in the nose. It takes a little bit of a discipline to look at who you might be talking to and what the nature of the conversation may be, where you're noticing something positive about the person. Maybe it's a new dress they have. I was with somebody the other day. We were in Costco and we got a hot dog, a Costco hot dog. Not good nutritional habits, but I do get a half of a hot dog and split it. We sat down to our table, and then a woman came by and was looking for a spot, and I said, "Look, first, I love that beautiful dress that you have on. If you'd like, there's a seat right here next to me. It'd be a pleasure to have you join us and tell us a little bit about where you got this dress. It looks beautiful on you." And she just smiled and just beamed out, and she sat down, and man, it was just a hot dog. The conversation was just fantastic. And so you can meet people at Costco's having a hot dog, and she was having a slice of pizza, and it's all good. And I felt pretty good when we walked out, and everyone looked at me. She says, "Bud, you just never cease to amaze me," and how you can get people to talk to you. And it's not a skill that I had for a good part of my life, but I've learned through the study of the human mind and what the benefits are to people, that some of these things are not, they're not the worst things in the world to do. We can enjoy conversations with people and know that there are benefits to it, as well as your mental health, your physical, and your overall well-being. And people in community are the best. So hopefully you'll take a tip from this today, and you'll find a window to look at, and then from the window go to the doorway, say hello to the mailman. Maybe there's somebody delivering groceries, and just say hello, and how's your day been? Hello. And has there been a highlight of your day that's made it anything different or unusual? And just find different simple questions that you might want to ask someone that would get you a pleasant greeting and a fun answer. And with that, done, I will go finish blowing my nose after I say goodbye to you, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great week. We're off and going, middle of July already. Home Run Derby tonight, and all kinds of political stuff on the TV today. I was looking at the guide. And some of my shows are not going to be on because we're watching convention stuff, and I guess we'll be doing that for a while, as long as the Olympics are also coming up. So we'll see you soon, hopefully on Wednesday, on Wednesday.